up in the sky, the birds, the planes.
Jason J. Lewis, the voice of Superman on Justice League Action. And you're listening to the Krypton Report.
Welcome to the Krypton Report podcast. I am your host, Tyler, the Superman of Blue, the Man of Tomorrow, and with me is my partner in crime, the Superman of Red, the Man of Steel himself, Mr. James Cole. Welcome, James.
Hey, what's going
on?
Yeah.
James.
I clicked on searched for Superboy on the Roku the other day, just, to see, but because I'm pretty sure it wasn't streaming anywhere. The only thing you can do is buy it. But then it said that George Reeves was on there, and I clicked on it, and it didn't go to George Reeves. It took me to Fleischer.
All right.
And I was like,
well, doesn't know what it has.
Okay. I've always had good luck and everything with it, but just in this particular instance, searching for Superboy, and I was scrolling through all the super stuff that was there, and George Reeves was there, and I was like, yeah, sure, why not? I'll throw that on for a minute, watch an episode of this or whatever, and then I'll throw in the DVD of Superboy, and then I'll watch that. And I turned it on, and it was Fleischer. All right, well, I'll watch the Bulleteer, and then I'll put on Superboy.
You know what? It just bums me out that we are at a time where we just don't have it was on Tubi and it's gone, and DC Universe, and I miss DC Universe. I really do. Like, I miss just turning on an app that had all my DC content, because we know, like, there for a while it was all on Max, but then over time Max has been selling stuff off, so now it's back to where stuff is all over the place.
And they don't have all of that stuff that was there. They had almost everything there. They had unaired pilots. They had old shows, 70s shows, they had movies, TV, game. Like, there was so much available, concentrated on DC, and so much of that is missing from Max.
Yeah, I miss.
They don't even have Swamp Thing over there.
Yeah, Swamp Thing is on Tubi right now, isn't it?
I believe so.
Yeah, and I'm just like, it's very frustrating, because that was the whole, like, selling point, was like an excitement of being like, oh, all of our stuff in one place together, and now it's not. And
it was cool to sit back and go panel by panel most of the time.
On a comic,
most
on a
of
TV.
Your comics on your TV, you could just sit back and go panel by panel. But when they had those long ones that went up like the whole side of the page, then it was just like this one streak down the middle of your screen, and you couldn't read it.
It's frustrating.
Just because that one panel. That happens on your phone or your tablet too, and then you have to, like, zoom into the words and stuff. But
it's just, I don't know. I miss that. Like, just because I also, like, do you remember when DC Universe had, like, they did specials where they did, like, little documentaries? They did one for Aquaman, they did one for Shazam because of the movies, and, like, I don't know, it was really cool. Like, they were doing a lot of neat stuff, but
it was like the early DC studios, almost.
Yeah, And I wish they would bring something back. I wish they'd bring some of that stuff back, and even if you do, put it on Max and make it, or something, like, I don't know. You just,
I'm happy with I'm usually pretty happy with the DC Universe app as it is, as the comic reader. And then, Max is still producing a lot of DC content over there. And there's got the DC studios going. It's officially begun. And
I'm about to say, speaking of which, good segue, James. Good job. We have December 5th premiere as the premiere date for Creature Commandos. Yay! And I think this spooky season that we're in right now, I think I'm going to try to read some Creature Commandos or, like, Agents of Shade kind of thing. I think I'm gonna kind of read some of those comics. There is a comic, and I'm going to try to reread. For anyone, there is on the app, there's Frankenstein. I think it's called Superman Monster. It's basically like if Superman was the Frankenstein monster. I read it last year.
Yeah.
It's a really great read if you love those old classic characters. But I'm interested in the what do you call it? The creature community. I was just looking something up real hard to convert. As of this recording, the final season of season 1, which I project will probably end up being the only season of Kite Man, has dropped. So that series is completely now on Max. We're talking about Max content.
Nice. I might have to finish that.
And then later this week, we will get Penguin, and it's getting a lot of good reviews. And I'm excited for Penguin and just the growth of the Matt Reeves crime drama saga Batman universe.
Yeah. My okay. Since you're gonna bring that up, going into that, have you seen the things that came out about this takes place a week after the first one, and then in the subsequent weeks it starts like a week after the first, and then it's the subsequent weeks after that. But then it goes but then it leads into the Batman 2,
Yep.
which is supposed to take place like a week or whatever after the Penguin ends. So my question is, with the condensed timeline for the story and then the time it takes to create these projects and put them out, like, are these people going to be around? Are they going to be doing this? How long is this going to go? And is this going to be like a Dark Knight trilogy scenario where a little more expanded, but a Dark Knight trilogy scenario where we are on a condensed timeline where Batman does this thing and there's like a beginning, middle, and an end?
I wonder.
Do you think, are we going to have that, or
I've
something
wondered
I was
about
thinking
that
about because of that condensed timeline?
because Matt Reeves said he has a trilogy planned for the Batman. That's their goal, which is fine, which is great. And then I think, okay, like what you just said, it says, this is the clip. The Batman takes place a week after the conclusion of the Penguin during the winter. So Penguin, if you think about it, the Batman starts on Halloween and goes to what, like November 2nd or something like that. Like
It's
a couple of days.
Mm-hmm.
So the Penguin is taking place. The series is like through November into December. So it's going to be like you said. It says the Penguin story plays out over the next weeks that take you towards the end of the year. We don't play Christmas or New Year's, but we're getting there. So it takes us into the winter. The Batman 2 will take place in winter. And then what? Do you do a second season of the Penguin?
Do you do somebody else a series focused on another villain?
And my question with that is, we already know that they wanted to do once again. We're going to do the Gotham Central type show that never gets off the ground for some reason. They talked about doing an Arkham Asylum show that never gets off the ground.
Recently got canceled.
So my thing would be do a mini series that's kind of a blend of those, but don't become like Gotham, and we're going to be talking about Gotham later this month, but do a show that's kind of a mixture of the Arkham and the CD. Because if you're going to continue this story, but then let's say the Batman 2 ends, it's in winter, and it takes place over a couple of days or whatever. So where does the Batman 3 take place? Because I don't want another, like you said, time gap where like with the Nolan series, it's like Batman Begins. For the most part, that story takes place at a set time frame, and then the Dark Knight's like a year later.
Yeah.
And then after the Dark Knight, we jump 8 years.
Yeah.
So I want, if the Batman ends,
but in those 8 years, he did nothing.
Right, because he was hiding, and because they were hunting him.
Yeah.
So my question is, with the Batman, would it be, if this ends in winter, do we then just jump a couple weeks later, like in spring? You know what I'm saying? And we do the final film, and then it means that this whole story of Batman takes place in year 2 into year 3.
Yeah. So thinking on that and thinking about things that we discussed with the Batman, the idea of that we had of potential small time jumps between films, or time filled in with these series or whatever, and the idea that Batman, because he was like so bare bones in the Batman, that his tech and his methods would evolve. Like we discussed him inventing the smoke bombs and, a couple other things I can't think of off the top of my head, but just ideas we had about how crude it was, how he could at this stage evolve into more of a Batman that we know on screen in this universe. So are we not going to really get that because it's so so short amount of time, or is it just going to happen because it was like potential to build upon, and then it's just going to happen? Because that's how it was in the Batman, which I did love, was they didn't feel the need to explain everything. If it was there because Batman needed to use it, it was there because that's what he used, and that was it, and that's fine. I actually prefer that. Also, do you think that as comic book fans, we look for like continuation of series? I mean, we get stories with beginning, middle, and end, but we also know that the character is returning. Whereas in the movies, there is a potential end to where these actors don't want to play this character anymore, things like that. So they want to give them a beginning, middle, and end to their on-screen stories. Do you think as comic book fans, we're weary about how they're going to end a story?
I would say yes, and I would look at it like this
without them coming back again.
I think you have two minds, because with the comic, we like continual stories. I mean, that was, we go back to the Nolan trilogy. Like, people argued because that had a beginning, a middle, and end, and that was his Batman story. Like, oh, that's not what Batman would do. But in this context, yes, I say we look at.
I still don't think the stopping for 8 years would be something that Batman would do, but
he could cheat.
Also, the goal was to get rid of crime, and that was what the Harvey Dent Act was for, and it did work. So, I mean, in the context of the story, I suppose
the Nolan Batman was never the boy by the candlelight pledging to be a bat and rid Gotham of crime.
Yeah,
because I think you need that child mindset as the initiation of it, because only a child would think I can like that I can do this.
Yeah,
and carry that psychosis in to being an adult. I think TV has evolved. Okay. And I say that because go back and look at the anthology movies. They were built almost like long TV, where this is a movie, but we can continue it. This is a movie, but the storytelling wasn't that tight that, you can watch almost Batman Returns, Batman Forever, Batman and Robin, almost without having seen the one before it, because so much changed each film that there wasn't a narrative through. Now, when they're doing the films, there's this stronger narrative overarching between movies. I also look back at the James Bond franchise, which had the ability to continually reboot and go on, like with the different Bonds. We just accepted it and went through it until we got to Daniel Craig, where they went to that modern day storytelling of tighter through line and made a quadrilogy, right? It's just Quantum of Solace, Spectre. Was it 4 or 5 films that Craig did?
I think he was in 4. I've only seen 2 of them.
Hold on. Casino Royale, Quantum of Solace.
Yeah.
There
was
Skyfall, Spectre, and then the last one. So he did 5. So he did.
Oh, did he? Okay. I did not see the last 2, maybe 3. I don't think I saw Skyfall.
Skyfall is good.
The only one I'm for sure I saw was Casino Royale, and then I saw the second one. If that is Quantum of Solace, I don't.
Yeah, and right there is the first time that Quantum of Solace was the first time they did a Bond movie that was a direct sequel to the last Bond movie, because Quantum picks up at the final moments of Casino Royale.
Yeah.
So you take that franchise, which has lasted for decades, and how they did that franchise. And there's always been a kind of linear, there's this comparison between Batman and Bond of how they do things if you look at the structures and the characters. So all that to be said, with the Batman, once again, we're looking at a character that where will they end him? Because you don't want to do what Nolan did just again. But, you know, do you want to end it where Batman's continuing his mission, but like there's some sort of high point where it ends? Because we were going to a conclusion, I guess, you know, because that's the way this is structured as a trilogy. It's not made to continue on. And in a way, I kind of would hope that maybe with the Batman Brave and the Bold, we find a way to continue just to make these films back to being a little bit where they just continue on and we change out actors. I mean, you changed out Q for James Bond with a new Q because of how the story, you know, and like with Alfred, or you get to a point where you don't have Alfred like they do in the comics, and you have a Batman continue and you change out Batman, and like you just keep making Batman films without having
just
to
constant stories where each story has a beginning, middle, and end, but not like the character overall.
There's not this super overarching narrative to where you can,
that is a fun idea.
Because it would be nice to get back to that, so you don't feel like we're having this hard reboot because trilogies, if we sat down and had a whole conversation about Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, even though Lord of the Rings are based off a book, I think it's a little bit different, but the idea of like Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, you know, the Nolan trilogy, and we like the Godfather trilogy, we start breaking down the patterns of a trilogy, the beginning, the middle chapter, the end. You start to see those patterns. They become almost, you have to try to reinvent it, but you're still doing kind of this similar beats to it in a trilogy, with the third film reaching back, you know, and touching on the first film and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah, that'd be interesting. I really am I guess I'm just bred a comic book fan because I'm really a saga kind of person, you know. I've always preferred director's cuts, more story, you know, different edits, more character moments. Sagas, you know, where there's multiple entries, where the world really builds out and fills up. You know, Lord of the Rings, the trilogy was amazing. And I mean, do I think that the rest of everything that's come out has reached the heights that did? No, but I really do enjoy them filling out the world, creating the narrative, filling in gaps. You know, The Hobbit, like, one thing I really appreciated about the movies was them using those times that Gandalf does disappear in the book as times to fill in the saga story, you know, creating that he's been researching this for decades, for like probably near 100 years. He's been like weary of this kind of uprising and return, you know, and you know, him getting closer and confirmed on those things. I thought that was really interesting. And I haven't started Rings of Power season 2 yet, but we're talking about that the other day about doing it, how they take some of the mythology of the Silmarillion to build the Rings of Power before Sauron was in power, before the War of the Rings 3,000 years ago. You know,
Janine and I decided that because of spooky season and like we got hooked on watching Penny Dreadful, and some stuff, we were like, you know what, we're just gonna hold Rings of Power till November when it's complete and just watch it. And the same things with Only Murders in the Building, the new season.
Okay,
we're just like, because we really enjoyed that, but being the mystery, it's more fun. Like when we watched the first season or the first 2 seasons, you know, we were able to binge it. So it was more enjoyable that way than, you know, spread out. So those are series we decided that we're just going to hold off till about November when they're wrapped up and then just watch them.
Yeah,
but this is a Superman podcast.
Yeah, we really went on a heavy tangent there.
We really don't have a whole lot.
It really came from Batman.
I mean, September, like I've joked before, September, yeah, there's Batman Day, but I really kind of just use September as a month to celebrate Batman. Because it is my second, you know, favorite DC hero, in fact, second favorite character, and I do love the Batman character in the world. So we really kind of put a lot of focus on Batman in the house and everything in September. But I do want to throw this out there. It's not really. There was an article through Deadline that said that Superman and Lois' plan was originally to go for 7 seasons, And you know what? As exciting as that is, part of me always worries, just because like keeping that high quality, you know. But I think if you would have had the right people, maybe 7 seasons could have worked. Is if you have the strength with TV, one of the biggest problems is you tell character stories. And then you have characters that outlast their story and their need on a show, but you don't ever want to drop those characters and those actors, so they just keep them and trying to find something for them to do.
Yeah.
And that's really, I think, when the stories suffer.
Well, that's also going back to TV when it was 20 plus episodes a season, and they just kept, and they'd sign people on for the majority of the season, and just to put them in there, they had to come up with a reason, and it was always some sort of dramatic irony for them to be around, or they'd repeat stories, just because, because it was a different writer and they told the same story as somebody else before. But the shorter seasons that they have, the idea, did they have ideas that far through, did they have those ideas that far through where they would have something to say the entire time, because a lot of the time they don't have those ideas planned ahead until they get picked up.
Yeah. And then so I'm just kind of, all right, but just give us a strong last season. And I think I would have liked maybe one more season, but
yeah,
we kind
would
of
have been good.
We kind of speculated that we feel like Superman and Lois was going to end before Superman, the movie. Like we kind of, the timetable's a little off, but we kind of speculated that it would end before that film would take off. So,
well, if we didn't have this restructuring at DC and DC Studios, would this keep going a little bit longer?
I don't know, but a good strong final season. I'd rather go off on a high note than linger. And then the last quick thing is just, I've seen speculation. Superman homepage wrote a whole thing about their idea and context clues of maybe seeing a teaser trailer for Superman in December. And then others have speculated online that we might see it February 9th for the Super Bowl, much like we did with The Flash. So I just thought that was just kind of worth mentioning. I mean, I think they're both kind of sound theories of when we might see a teaser trailer for this film. I definitely want to see a teaser, like about 6 months out kind of thing, and then a full trailer. So like, give me a teaser like in December. Give me the first trailer like in February, March, and then don't give me like 13 trailers and TV spots and everything that reveals too much.
They're gonna market the hell out of this movie. It up. They're gonna market the hell out of this movie. I hope. I just hope, well, the idea here is we certainly did not have the production that, our last tentpole film had. That super lengthy production, and the idea of keep it in everybody's mind the entire time. So just keep giving them stuff over and over and over again. I think that some people might know that how quick the turnover is in theaters, that if you start hyping it too early, like I think the first time we see anything would probably be February, the Super Bowl, because that's 5 months. That's plenty of time to hype up the movie, not give up too much, and us to see the things. Because I think if they start doing it in December and then they don't give us something until February, March, I don't know. I don't think we're going to see anything until, I think, the Super Bowl, really.
See, and I'm kind of with you on that, because I don't want them to oversell it. I don't want to, too much, but I do want to see them put some their effort behind it. I just don't do screenings like they did with The Flash. Like they over marketed The Flash.
Yeah.
And they did all those free screenings for fans who were already going to come. Like, you lost how much money you think on those screenings?
Yeah.
Because
let's think about this. The last time Superman was in people's purview was Henry Cavill and
Justice League.
Justice League. The DCE,
the theater.
he was kind of like the face, of DC. Well, you're doing Superman again. He's the face of DC, and DC has had a really harsh record over the last decade. So
you can't think like us, okay? Like,
yeah, but as the general audience, some people might see that and but then they see something new.
Well, I mean, you think about it. Most
how do you
general audiences
how do you market it?
Aren't going to follow everything that we do.
No, I know.
So think about
the general audience's reaction to DC. It was in decline, especially post Justice League, except for Aquaman.
So I mean, yeah, I'm just saying, like, we look back at what we've had in theaters. There hasn't been anything, because some people might have went and saw Black Adam, and then that was it. They didn't stay after, like, for any post-credit scene or anything. And their relevance of Superman is, that last Justice League film, because they didn't follow the news. They're not watching it on TV. There's not the hubbub like we have, where we're like, oh, we got this and this, and Tyler is on TV. They're just like, no, what are you talking about? So this is a big deal to have this back.
Yeah. Honestly, it's like the time Superman Returns came out, and then the time Man of Steel came out. It's like your first solo Superman movie. Like, everybody's going to see Superman, and they're going to want to go and see it as a movie,
That's the importance that we need. And
then it just needs the good word of mouth, I think, to really grow.
I think it would be neat if they had a fan screening, like an advanced fan screening, like maybe one night for certain fans in certain areas or something, and that be it. Just kind of to build that word of mouth between people like us and stuff, who are going to be really out there, going for it.
Get all of us DC podcasters, send us to a screening. Let us watch it, and then we all go on and say spoiler free and just say, go see the damn movie because it's amazing.
Well, it's like, okay, when BVS came out, okay, for example, Jania and I, just for fun, signed up when they had the big marketing push and went to the theater to watch the trailer release. Okay, we went to the movie theater and just watched a 2-minute trailer. Afterwards, there was a rep there who gave us posters. We got posters, and then took our information. And then the following year, when the film was released, we got an invite to see the movie 3 days or 4 days before release. So we saw BBS that Monday, before the general public saw the release that Thursday night.
Nice.
And I had just started podcasting at that time, so I didn't have as much of the references and everything and people that we do now. So I'm like, if you did something like that for people who are part of your audience, that might really help just boost it. But let's get into today's first. We're doing Superboy season 1 episode 8, The Fixer. Now, I've watched this one, but it's been a little bit, just because this week we were supposed to record earlier, so my brain's a little foggy and everything. It's been a long week. Solomon has been in his play, and I've had to take him. I basically had to make the same drive 3 trips. So that's a there and back almost 3 times, some days, and, usually 2 days, because it's right by where I work. But because of the timing, I have to come home, get him, take back. And we're all exhausted at this house. But right. Season 1, episode 8, Clark discovers that Luther is trying to fix some of the school's basketball games so that he makes a killing in betting. And the way he does is that he has a photo of the team star player in a compromising position that it got out, it would ruin his career. All right. The Fixer, James. Did you think it was funny watching Superboy fly around a high school gym blowing his whistle?
Yeah, absolutely.
It was probably like, I was like,
then,
man, this is just nothing else for Super. I mean, it feels almost like something crazy that the old Soviet Superboy comics would pull, but in the context of this show, it's just kind of like, oh, that's rough.
yeah, it was pretty hilarious him just coming in. I think it was funny Clark running the referee off, saying never ref any game anywhere ever again. And then he's like, yeah, sure, and just took off. And then Superboy, fair play, and the compromising photo. Oh no, a college athlete was smoking. I thought it was hilarious.
Now you have to make like something horrible, like it would really be something where you'd have to go, oh my gosh, what are you doing to really like sell that same kind of theme of like compromising photo?
Yeah,
because almost everything now we're just like, yeah,
like that's not compromising. A college athlete smoking a joint? No, that's not compromising in the least. That's expected.
yeah.
But
like, he's. I mean, now it's like everything's legal.
What did you think about Lex's villainy in this episode being a fixer? You know,
I mean,
making people really, throw games to win bets.
It really like makes you question like this Lex, like where his origins come from, where his just in general, like this isn't the rich boy Lex. Our friend Anthony over at Digging for Kryptonite had a really good headcanon of like the story of this Lex Luthor, of where he came from because of just behaviors and stuff like this, where it's like you're fixing basketball games because why? Like,
yeah,
you know, he's this is like your Zach Morris type Lex Luthor is really what this is.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it doesn't feel like Lex, like even like, oh, college Lex. I mean, it is a very, very dramatically different.
Yeah.
Lex Luthor.
I did think it was good, at least in the respect, like he tried to get this one guy to do it and he ultimately decided not to, but then he had somebody else on his payroll and then he had somebody else on his payroll, you know? I mean, it is very Lex to have a backup to your backup, you know?
Yes.
To have some different angles thought out. But yeah, that was, other than that, I mean, you know, it wasn't a horrible episode. It was funny here and there. You know, I do think it is funny that Superboy comes in to ref the game. You know, I think it was pretty hilarious. I got a good chuckle, but it was something I couldn't. I know that the character would do in some respect, you know, but I couldn't take it seriously.
Yeah.
I absolutely know that Superman or Superboy would, but I just couldn't take it seriously in Superboy.
It's very hard. Like this episode's tough because it's so like low stakes and almost ridiculous now. Like I don't want to say dumb, but like this is almost lower than like plot wise than like a Saturday morning cartoon.
Yeah.
Like, and it's not even like it's a like professional game or like there's something big behind it. It's just so it's just so low. I do like that the actor who played Coach. Did you recognize the actor who played the Coach?
The dad from Teen Wolf.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was like, that little it would have been awesome if he was Coach Scott. Oh crap, what was his name? And I'm mixing up Teen Wolf the movie and Teen Wolf the TV show because they changed the last name in the Howard
in the TV show.
It was Howard in Teen Wolf, and he's just listed as Coach, but like if it would have been Coach Howard in this,
oh yeah,
awesome.
Yeah,
Like
because his name was Howard. He was his dad.
Like
But
he's like, yeah, my
Coach
son
Howard.
inspired me to be a basketball coach. Like that's all I
Right.
needed. That's all I needed. Be like continuity.
What would have been funny is if Superboy was reffing the game and then the Teen Wolf showed up, started dribbling the ball.
And then I probably would lose my mind, like, because you know how much of a like Teen Wolf, like with Michael J. Fox, is like the closest to like a modern day kind of Wolfman type thing. And I probably would have lost my mind.
Right.
Like,
And then what are the odds that back then in Superboy we would have a crossover of Superboy and Teen Wolf, and we've got Tyler Hoechlin from Teen Wolf who is our Superman. You know what I mean? Like, who'd have thought that was the crossover we were getting?
it would have been great.
Yeah.
But it's probably like the least. I mean, I'm looking at IMDb right now. Its ranking on IMDb is a 5.6, and I think it's probably one of the. I'm just flipping through the season at the moment. It's the lowest episode of the season. There's one that comes close. There's two that comes close. Yeah. Oh, wait. There's one episode 25 of this season. Ranks lower, and it would be probably we might skip ahead and do that episode next month because it's kind of Halloweenish, but
okay.
Yeah, succubus.
I was gonna say, how many episodes away?
We're on episode 7. This is episode 25.
Oh, gee, yeah, we'd have to jump ahead on that one.
But I'm just saying, like,
we won't get there.
It doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't. We don't have to do the exact production order.
But all right. So, this is, like I said, this is exactly like the lowest one where you're just kind of like, okay.
Right.
It's just one that it almost hurts to watch, but it is what it is. It's an enjoyable series. Our good buddy Nate McKenzie over at the Superman Animated Podcast is watching Superboy right now, and he's in season 2. It has its charms, but now it's time to move on, ladies and germs, to our comic discussion today, and we will be tackling now Action Comics Volume 4, titled Hybrid. We now have a new creative team by Andy Diggle, Tony S. Daniels.
Two creative teams.
Yeah, with Scott LaBelle and Tyler Kirkman. I've always liked Tony S. Daniels' artwork. I'm pulling this up on my computer. I had it on my iPad, but then Sayla took my iPad before we started recording, and I always have horrible luck with comics on my computer.
Oh, lovely. This is the worst time for her to steal it.
But it's keeping her entertained. But the quick summary they have is: determined to turn the people of Metropolis against the Man of Steel and finally vanquish him from the Earth, Lex Luthor unleashes a virus of Metropolis capable of rewriting the DNA of those infected, including Superman. While Superman's immune system eventually fights off the infection, but not before a hybrid Superman is created through the virus' ability to rewrite DNA. This new hybrid Superman is the only being capable of defeating the true Superman, and Lex will come at nothing to see it accomplish its mission. Collects Action Comics 19 through 24 and stories from Young, Romance Cell, The New 52 #1, and Superman Annual #2. All right. And we're going to do, instead of just going like issue by issue like we had before, we're just going to talk in general. How did you feel about this, just overall, reading this?
I thought I didn't think it was too bad. I enjoyed it. We finally got the story here of why Lex was in prison.
Yes.
We got to see Lex in prison pretty early on in the Superman book.
But we didn't know why. Like, and it definitely feels like...
And they did say it was in Action Comics.
Just from the artwork and stuff, like the Lex appearance is definitely a departure from what we met... what do you call it? In Action, we also learned
Grant
how
Morrison's
yes, run. We learned how Lois meets John Carroll.
Apparently, Lex decided to take care of his physical body after he met Superman.
I am going to pull up real quick here. I am going to share this one panel with you real quick because this is actually a panel I love. This just so we're starting to understand more of the suit, and in this we see more of the suit because we actually get introduced to this is where we kind of get more about Dr. Veritas, who lives in the center of the earth,
Yeah.
And I thought that was but what we're seeing is people like this where Superman stops this pilot and he thinks it's Jimmy and it's really not. And we start to see something that's going on. And I feel this is where we're starting to get more of the menacing scientist Lex that we know compared to like Morrison's action Lex was definitely more of a throwback to previous like Lex Luthor's, but we see that Superman starts like Lex has basically, as I'm trying to remember because I read all this like 2 weeks ago for us to record, but then we've had to push this off.
He engineers a virus that's delivered with nanite probes with a kryptonite shell, so that way he can use this virus and the nanites to rewrite Superman's DNA to kind of like control him.
Mm-hmm.
And and then it becomes this virus that replicates, like it creates its own like body, and then it infects people.
And the issue ends with Superman holding his hand as it's basically becoming its own thing. And then we learn, like I said, Dr. Veritas. And then once again, we see this one panel I'm going to share because I think this is where we're learning about, like I said, this is really where I feel we learn the suit, because right here it said we see where she's giving him back his suit. And we see how it's just the shield that goes like on his chest and then it expands when it grows with the bio suit. And I think as much as I like that, I think it was a great way of like trying to explain how he can hide his suit under his clothes and everything is like, oh, it's,
Yeah. Otherwise you have to have Clark Kent constantly in a trench coat because of his cape would be all baggy in his clothes and stuff. Like he'd look
it's always the cape and the boots are always the one for me. Like, how's he hiding that?
Yeah. Even still, he'd be like, he's got a big old gold belt and red underwear if he stretched too far, and his shirt came up.
Means that everything he wears has to be like a couple sizes too big.
Right.
So that mutates, like I said, and creates a new form that Clark has to battle. And
Dr. Veritas uses some red solar radiation to weaken Superman and the creature because it's part of his DNA too.
And then it kind of backfires on Lex because Superman beats the virus, but the virus is spreading like to regular people. And we get in this book later, Lex pulls a usual Lex Luthor where he shows up to save the day in his own like Lex armor, trying to defeat Superman, saying that Superman's the threat for this virus. He even has a really cool like hard light kryptonite dagger that forms from his armor that he tries to stab Superman with. And it's through this that they're able to, with Lois and Jimmy's help, this is where we're able to prove what Lex did with the virus, like you said. And this is how he gets arrested. Which, we were talking about when we were reading Superman. Where did Lex get arrested at? Like, where did that happen? So,
yeah, where did that happen? What did he do? Why is he in such a massive prison?
And we're about to a point, and we've kind of done this structurally, where we're going to stop Action, and what we're going to do is we're going to read Action and Superman in parallel, because the last 2 or 3 volumes of Action and Superman, we're going to kind of read them in parallel, because what we've proven is that you can't really read just one title in this.
Yeah. Well, with the stories later on, we see bits that jump in with Cywar.
Yeah,
because like this still wouldn't, because volume 1 of Action and volume 1 of Superman, they don't line up. They don't start lining up until you get to volume 4.
You have Cywar we running into with Hell on Earth, and then Doomed is really where, and we get the other titles that we're going to be exploring, which is the Superman and Wonder Woman title, and how that all, because the next part of this book is Superman and Wonder Woman on a date, and it is this kind of one-off issue where they fight the one of the Greek gods,
Sirens,
and the Sirens. The
Sirens control her cousin Eros.
Yep. And it's this short little story, and Superman and them have to battle it. And then, like we said, we get the Atomic Knight, which plants into Cywar. And it's Hector Hammond reaching out to Clark. And this is where we're seeing the different art teams that are part of things. Because the shift to Clark in this, pulling back here, is Scott LaBelle and artist Tyler Kirkman now. And you can see because they draw Clark a little less as rugged as before. And, this is telling the story. Like, the best part of this is when people are, when Clark and Kat are showing up and they pull the iPad to try to take their names. And like, oh, we don't see you on here. And Clark uses his heat vision to basically destroy everyone's iPad.
Yeah. Well, that was they used that to the iPad to like get in. But it was, they promised any interviews and whatnot to like the Daily Planet, and Clark basically like scorched the iPads of every other journalist in the area, so that way they're the only ones able to actually receive the interview.
Not sure how I feel about that, Clark, but you know what? I'll allow it, because I do like the artwork later.
Laura's on one today.
I know. We see Clark battling in space because he's summoned by Hector Hammond. And like, this story, like, to me, in a lot of ways, as he's battling the Atomic Knights, I don't really care about it, because I already have a sense of what's going to happen, because I had already read Cywar. And it's just a fun action space adventure that leads Clark on a mission that brings him, he up against the what's his face, Psycho Pirate with the Medusa mask. And that's why, like, we've said before how much the New 52 was written for trades, but I'm going to kind of pull that back and think that was written for certain characters, because I know the Batman trade works really well. Like, and I mean, it even, overlaps with Nightwing at times, like especially the first series, but
yeah, the first whole arc.
Yeah. Like, but I'm, I've read a lot, but yeah, these, because now see that we're in Cywar Part 2, and it's like I appreciate these stories, but I'm like, at the same time, like,
yeah, it was almost more written for the event trades,
right?
Not the character trades,
And I'm finding, reading it like this, I'm actually a little bit more upset, because I was enjoying the beginning of this book when I felt like I was reading a story, but now I'm just getting a book or two to something else that I have to read, that I've already read and we've already kind of talked about and speculated, that I don't even care about this story as much.
I mean, we did have questions about like some of the gaps, the parts that we were not getting from the other one, but it's not like, but reading them apart, it is harder to fill in those gaps.
The most interesting part in this Cywar episode is, where we're at, is where Clark is back on the farm with Lana, and he's having a memory, and he gets attacked by Kenny Braverman, Anthony Desiato's favorite Smallville character. And then we have the Kent show up, and basically John Kent, we know it's wrong because he says, how many times have I told you I regret the day that I ever found you, that we should have just left you to die in that stupid rocket ship. And and we see like the snake imagery, and I really like the way the Medusa mask is done with a lot of the snake imagery and everything in this. And then it's like it keeps reverting back, because then you see him being put in the rocket as a baby with a snake, and then we see Clark, now Superman, crying with the psychopirate over him with the Medusa mask. And then this is where Lois shows up as the blue energy Johnny Storm looking creature.
Yeah.
And it says, for the full story, check out Superman Volume 4 Psy-War. And then we jump to the next chapter, which is the World of Krypton, Part 1.
Which is funny because we actually read some Krypton stories in the other books, and they took place further ahead. So this is going back further into the past on Krypton.
And I'm like, why is this just not collected as its own trade? And because then the next book is World of Krypton Part 4, Eradication. And I'm just kind of like, we've already done these stories and we've already speculated. And then it ends with, the World of Krypton Part 5. And I found this, I was excited about this one being a new creative team and where we started out with the hybrid story.
The World of Krypton has Part 1, Part 2, Part 3, Part 4, Part 5.
Yeah, but I mean, like, in this trade, it's 1, 3, and 5.
No, 2 is Dissension.
So
I think these must have been backups because they're only a few pages.
Yeah, but I mean, but in this trade, we don't get the full story.
Oh, well, because Part 1 we get Discovery. Part 2 is Dissension. Part 3,
because I see, like, I'm looking through the trade right here.
Darkest Depths.
Are you looking in the trade or the individual issues?
The trade.
Because I'm like, I got the trade pulled up and it's like
4 is Eradication.
Are you seeing, like, hold on.
Part 5 is Fortitude. Let me see here.
Okay, I see. Okay, I missed where. Yeah, they must have
They're real quick. So I think they were backups and they put it all together as one story in the end of the trade.
Okay, well, I retract what I just said because I missed part of it.
I was trying to think about when I was reading
like,
it.
I totally missed Part 3. Like, I'm going through now looking for
like the markers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, I think when I was reading it, I think maybe you did the same thing I was doing when I was reading it. I was thinking about fitting it into the other stories from before, but this is the whole story. Yeah, because
there it is. It's like the water one.
Yeah, he's underwater. So it starts with him underwater in Part 1 where he's at, but then Part 2 starts in the
there's
in the council chambers.
There's 6 page backups.
Yeah, and ends underwater, and Part 3 starts underwater again. And it kind of goes back and forth until the two sides collide.
Which I like that in the trade. I'll take that back because that makes more sense. I apologize. But it just felt like I'm reading a trade of sporadic stories.
And I can see how if you were reading it over and over and over again, that once you hit this, it almost follows that same structure, but it is one story.
What would you rate this trade overall?
The stories, so the Lex Luthor story I really enjoyed. I like that one the most. And then probably, honestly, the Krypton one at the end. And then, the little bits of Psywar. I mean, it was a good issue for the
Mm-hmm.
Psywar, going back through his memories.
Mm-hmm.
But the Atomic Knights one, like you said, I mean, it was very high fantasy, high sci-fi. It was cool. The art was great in all of these issues. I mean, like if I was to like rate it out of 10, I mean, as a whole thing, I mean, because of the lack of cohesion and just like a couple of random parts of some stories, I would say that the trade itself is like a 7. I enjoyed everything here, but it wasn't complete.
Yeah. Now, I will let the listeners know that our next review, when we do the next volume, we're doing volume 5, which is What Lies Beneath. And then we're going to skip volume 6. Because volume 6 is the action tie-ins to Doomed, which we covered when we talked about Doomed as a giant collective. And then 7, 8, 9 is when we're going to start to get back on track with Superman the story, especially because we have Action Volume 8 and Superman Volume 7 are both called The Truth. And they're going to line up, and that's when we're going to read those together and be able to really talk about the story as it is, especially when we get to the last one. But making our way through this, and I love that at least on the app, on the action side, they do have all the trades listed, 1 through 9.
Yeah.
But then on the Superman side, it is confusing and broken up.
Absolutely.
But I was a little disappointed in this one. I'll be honest with you, because I don't know. I just remember reading the trades, but I read so much of the New 52 trades at the same time. I just remember it differently, and going through this has been educational, because I remember thinking, oh, I can just read this trade and get a story, and the farther we get into it, you can't.
Yeah. I like when I started reading in the New 52, like I had read some issues and things, and then I had gotten to the point where I was reading the stories, like the events. And then when DC Universe came out, I was doing where I would read a line and I would hit an event, and then I would read the event, but then it would connect to other books. So then I'd go back and I'd read that whole book all the way up to the event book chapter, and I'd do that. So I ended up reading a lot in a lot of different ways, in some different ways, really connecting and building up all those stories into the events. But yeah, if you were just like reading the character you like if we were only reading Superman books, what do you get? And especially if you do this trade way, the trade versions here are really are really sparse, and it's almost best to, with the New 52, to try and collect the event books, the complete event books, where you get all of the chapters, like Doomed or like Hell on Earth or Psywar, not the trades.
Yes, sir. But all right, man, that takes us down for the day. We're making it through the New 52. Why? Because no one else is doing it, and we are talking about just the arc of how comic structure is and how tie-ins and crossovers can be positive, but the same thing can really be detrimental to when you're just trying to read a story. And this is why I think that Elseworlds and spin-off and miniseries work so much better, because going into ongoing storytelling, it gets tough.
Absolutely.
Having a jump in point and stuff like that, it gets very difficult.
Yeah. Ups and downs in the quality of the storytelling, in the quality of the stories, the entry points, number ones, or Yeah, the mini series, like you said, Elseworlds. Those are some of the ones that I really started to dive into and buy when I started to buy my trades and stuff.
Yep. So I'm going to play this outro video because Solomon asked me to play this again. So here's our little outro. Check us out on all social media, Krypton Report. Here we go. Solomon.
Don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe.
I love it just because he's so young in that video.
Yeah, right.
That little clip. Find us on all major social platforms. So for me and James, we just say, remember, and have a good, safe life. Tyler here. Hope you're enjoying the podcast today. I just want to talk about another project I've really been working on. It's the Requel. It used to be just part of our Patreon, and we still do Patreon exclusives, but I've really pumped it up, and I've started inviting friends to join me as we pitch movie ideas. I ask everyone if they can go and check it out. It's under Jonathan Tyler Patrick on my YouTube, and go like it, subscribe, and if you want to come on and pitch an idea, come on. Just check it out. It's a fun time.
I am Brian Peters, the creator and host of Gravely Amusing. For the past 30 years, I've studied the history of gods and monsters in pop culture and our world. As a student of theology and history, I've tried to understand evil and its impact on us. As a writer, I've tried to share this knowledge. As a comedian, I've tried to make people laugh as I do it. But as a man-child, I'm still that scared 7-year-old boy. Join me as I share the history of horror and sci-fi, discuss classic and modern pop culture, and share a creepy story or two. This podcast may scare you, it may horrify you, or it may leave you gravely amused. Listen to Gravely Amusing on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and wherever podcasts are found. Follow us on Twitter at gravely_amusing or on TikTok at Gravely Amusing.
We have a $1 Patreon. Yes, I know everyone asks for money, but our $1 Patreon each month gets you commentary tracks for releasing movies, DC movies. It gets you my Requel series where I pitch ideas about movie sequels, prequels, or whatever. It also gets special bonus episodes. So check that out for $1 a month. That's all we ask. Keep it cheap, keep it simple, and help us keep going. Check out the link in the show notes or Patreon Krypton Report.
This is Dan Jurgens, and if you want to have a good time, keep listening to the Krypton Report.
Look up in the sky.
We want to thank you for checking out the Krypton Report podcast, and we ask you to check us out on all of our social media, on Twitter X, Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, Hive, Threads, YouTube. We're everywhere. And if you want to be a guest on the podcast, just send us a message and let us know.
If you are like Tyler and James and can't get enough super talk, check out these other podcasts. Digging for Kryptonite, Supergirl Radio, The Last Sons of Krypton, The Superboy Legacy Podcast, All-Star Superfans, Superman the Animated Podcast, The Aspiring Kryptonians, Always Hold On to Smallville, The Geek of Steel, and Truth, Justice, and Hope